If you're an adult saxophone player and you're thinking about joining a jam session or a band, but you're not sure if you're ready, well, this is the episode for you, because today we're breaking down exactly how to prepare and what to expect so that you can walk into that jam session with confidence. G'day, it's Nigel here from the Sax School Online podcast. Welcome back. This is where we help adult players like you level up your skills, have a load more fun playing sax, and also learn how to play with a lot more confidence. That's whether you're starting from scratch or whether you're coming back to sax like thousands of our other learners, or even if you're looking at advanced skills, we've got you covered. So today, as always, I'm joined by Fred and Joel from the Sax School team. And we're talking about a really important topic. It's like a milestone topic, actually, for most of our adult learners. And that is joining a jam session or a band or just getting out and playing on stage with confidence. I'm really looking forward to digging into this, guys, because this topic comes up all the time with our members, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, all the time. It's because they want to get out. That's the point, isn't it? You do all your practice, but there comes the point where what's that practice for? It's to get out and play with other people and enjoy yourself.
100%. And actually, it's quite inspiring. We have a lot of conversations about how inspiring it is, how many of our members are doing all sorts of crazy things, from playing solo gigs or playing for like a worship thing, or going and joining that pub band, or doing all sorts of stuff. It's quite surprising. But anyway, before we get into that whole conversation, what have you guys been up to? What about you, Joel? What you been digging into this last week or so?
I've been transcribing bass lines is what I've been transcribing, because actually I find it bizarrely difficult. I can quite happy transcribing saxophones, and I'm not that bad at transcribing voicings on pianos and things like that, because I'm kind of obsessed with harmony and I play a saxophone. But I don't know what it is about bass lines. My ears just don't like that range. So I've been transcribing a few things and just trying to kind of improve my ears in that range. It's difficult. And when you work it out, it's really simple, and you wonder why you've not been able to hear it, where if it was played on a saxophone, I'd know it like that. So that's what I've been up to. It's been a little bit frustrating, but I think I'm getting there. So.
That's interesting, actually. So are you transcribing them, those like a bass line, and then playing it on a keyboard? Are you writing it out and then playing it on your sax? How are you applying it?
Yeah, I'm just transcribing it so I can play it on keyboard, basically. So just some kind of pop tunes, actually, some different pop tunes and things like that I really like the vibe of. I've got an interesting bass line. I've just been trying to work them out on piano, but it just took me longer than I thought.
Interesting.
And it's good to find those things. They're the things that you're looking for in your practice. You know, if you can't do it and you learn to do it, you've learned something, haven't you? If you can already do it, what's the point?
So you didn't set out to do this. It just, you realized while in the process of like transcribing these tunes that the bass parts are difficult, and or did you actually say, hey, I'm going to transcribe some bass lines?
No, it was just there was a particular tune I really liked. The chords were really easy, the melody was easy, but there was a really interesting bass line. And I thought, well, that'll be pretty straightforward, and it turned out not to be. So I went down that road for a little bit and did a few more.
Was it Baby Shark? Was that the tune?
How did you know, Fred?
See? I know your taste.
That's funny. What about you, Fred? What have you been digging into?
Well, I am in the process of writing a contrafact or an etude, whatever you want to call it, because I find that is I'm working on the Benny Golson tune, Along Came Betty, which is deceptively difficult because it goes all over the place. The changes go all over the place, and they don't make any sense. And to try to analyze it, and it's like, look, and memorize it, that's really hard for me, is memorizing changes to tunes. And when they don't make a lot of sense, even though everything sounds perfectly natural, it doesn't make any sense. So I feel that sometimes when you have a tune like that, you really want to get the changes under your fingers. If you write a solo, or whatever, contrafact or an etude, whatever you want to call it, it really helps you get a handle on the chord changes. So I'm writing a contrafact on, or a solo or an etude, whatever you want to call it, on Along Came Betty.
What's your process for that? Because I've done loads of that, actually, and we do it all the time for Sax School, right?
Sure.
And I've tried the approach of, okay, here's all the chords. Now I'm going to sit down and, using my brain power, come up with it's a bit like a mathematical problem. I'm going to come up with a melody. Or I've tried the other approach where I just jam around and I record it and then I transcribe that. So do you use either of those, or do you do something different?
I guess it's probably a bit of a hybrid, but I find like if I just put on a recording or a backing track and play along with it, I end up playing all the same junk that I would normally play, and I want to try to do maybe something a little different and maybe a little more academic, if you will. And so I'm kind of doing a little bit of both, probably. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I also find it's fun to write a contrafact or a new melody to an existing harmony, a known harmony, if you've got a bunch of parameters. Like when I'm writing stuff for Sax School, I might think, well, I really want to explore this interval, or I want to explore this rhythm. And that pushes me into new places that I wouldn't normally go. Or sometimes I really want to hit these particular harmony notes over the shape of the melody. And I quite enjoy that process because it just pushes you out of your comfort zone a bit.
Yeah, a little bit of some parameters are always good in that situation. Like you want to use, I'm going to use a lot of enclosures or approach notes or whatever, that type of thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great thing to do, and all the big names. Brecker was renowned for self-transcribing his solos and then rewriting bits of them to, kind of either improve or expand on what he'd done. And I've got a really interesting book. It doesn't seem to be available anymore, and I don't know how I got it or where I got it. Actually, it's one of those books that appears during your life, and it's. I think it's called something like 167 unfinished Coltrane compositions. And they're basically just kind of scribblings of Coltrane, and it's exactly that. It's maybe 5 bars of the interval of a sixth over a certain progression, and that's it. And you can see that he's using them to just explore the potential of an idea rather than falling into the habits that you get into as soon as you pick up a sax and try and do it and doing what you already know. So it's a really interesting book. You can just see this process where he's using composition, to investigate rather than finish something, always end up with a piece. And it was one of the best bits of advice I ever got given with composition was treat every composition as throwaway. Don't sit there trying to perfect it because you'll just ruin it. It's better to just start another one, and 1 in 10 will be great, or the other ones will just be useful for a different reason. So it's it's an interesting process doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like that. The other thing I find really helps me is putting some time pressure on it, which I'm generally under a lot of time pressure anyway, because I've got a limited amount of time to get stuff done. And if I force myself to, you've got this amount of time to write that melody, then you kind of have to just say, right, that's good enough. Commit to a draft of it. Even if I then come back to it a few days later and reserve my final judgment to a few days later. That's an interesting thing to do as well. Yeah. But just pushing yourself through. Oh, that's really interesting. You guys have been doing fun stuff. This week for me, I've actually been digging into taking I've been looking for classical melodies that I can repurpose into different styles. And that's been a fun thing, digging through a bunch of well-known classical melodies. And then thinking about, well, could I do this in a jazz style, or could I do it in a poppy style, or a commercial style? And how could I change that harmony to suit the new style, or maybe change the melody, like stretch it out, compress it, and then and make something that is still recognizable, but also kind of a bit more contemporary. So that's been a fun exercise. And I've been doing that actually on my soprano, which has been a double up challenge because it's given me a chance to get back to a bit more soprano playing. So it's been fun.
Cool. Yeah, it's a nice thing to do that. I find Chopin works really well as jazz. He's got some really interesting harmony. You just major sharp 5 chords and all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of stuff going on in Chopin when you start looking at it. You don't even need to change it. You can just kind of copy his harmony and then write a bass line that I'm not very good at.
But you are better after this week.
You'll be better. There's actually a band here in St. Louis called Bach to the Future. And they play different versions. It's, of classical tunes. That's what they do. It's the same kind of thing.
Oh, that's an interesting idea for a band, actually. I quite like that. I think I'd like to go see that gig. On to today's topic. So, Fred, you always talk a lot about knowing the scene before jumping in. And actually, you've been through that process even just recently where you moved to live in a new city. And I remember you telling me about the process of going through and starting to make new contacts and preparing. So for somebody who's brand new to this whole process, what's some great advice for how they could get jam ready?
Well, I think what I did, especially when I moved to Atlanta, because I literally knew nobody when I moved there, and Atlanta had a pretty bustling jam session scene. I think you could go maybe 5 nights a week and hear different clubs, totally different groups of people, and there'd be jam sessions. Like there'd be an R&B one here, and there'd be maybe a funk thing here, and some was just singers, and there was like a traditional, real, straight ahead jazz thing, and all different stuff. And I was going out every night of the week, and checking all this stuff out. So the first thing that you want to do is find out where they are. Right. And, you do that by, sometimes you go to a music store and they'll have a little poster. It'll say, whatever, jam session, musicians welcome, whatever, open mics, whatever they call them. That's one way. The other way is to, look in your local free paper, the one that shows you who's playing at whatever clubs and all that stuff. And the other thing is just other musicians, any other musicians. You never know who's going to know where these things are. And then once you get there to go to the session, you'll see more musicians there. You can ask them where this. That's how I found out. I went to one. Somebody told me about one. I went there, and they said, "Oh, yeah, you got to check out this place over here on Tuesday nights. They do this." And then you want to see. You want to check out the actual scene. And when I went without my instrument. I just went and kind of like sat in the back and just checked it out. Like, is it a house band? Is it like a free-for-all where you never know who the rhythm section is going to be? Or do they have like a band that plays like the first set and then, everybody's welcome to come up? Is there a sign-up sheet? Do you have to like know what you're going to, all stuff like that? And what kind of tunes are they playing? Like, you don't want to go and try to play, a jazz tune at an R&B thing or vice versa, And then I went home and, listen, okay, so these guys, everybody seems to be playing this too. Because this is another thing is, especially here in the States, there's a lot of regional tunes that like when I was in Atlanta, people were playing like this tune by Stan Getz called Voyage, which I had never heard, but it seemed like every jazz jam session I went to, they were playing that. So I thought, well, I better learn that, that type of stuff. And the same thing with R&B sessions. Everybody was doing like, whatever, some tune that I knew, but I never would have thought you would have been, doing it at a jam session. So you want to be prepared, okay?
Gotcha.
And you want to know, like, if you're going to come with a tune, you want to know what key it's in so you could tell the musicians, that kind of stuff. You want to have like a tempo in mind, all those kind of things. So you don't get up there and you're like, I don't know, what do you want to play? Oh, I don't know. Do you know this? No, I don't know that. That type of thing. You want to be, even if you have to bring sheet music, there's nothing wrong with that, if it's not like ridiculously hard to sight read. And you want, basically, the more prepared you are, the more relaxed you're going to be, because it is a little bit of a it was stressful for me, not knowing anybody, going up and I know it's just going to be hard to believe, but I'm essentially a pretty shy person, and I know, shocker. But yeah, you want to be as confident as you can, so you can get up there and just play and not think about too many other things.
Okay, cool. So quite a lot of stuff to unpack there, Fred. So
yes.
So basically what you're saying is, first of all, go do your homework. Like, do your research and just as a lurk in the back and see what the situation is. Because you touched on the fact that sometimes a jam session might have the same band that just has instrumentalists that come in or vocalists that come in. Other times it might be run by a drummer or a piano player or whatever, and the rest, all the other musicians cycle in and out. Right. So understanding that, so you also then know what the who the contact person might be. You also understand what the vibe and the style is of that particular jam session. You understand what some standard tunes might be, and then go and do all of your preparation work so you've learned the songs and you know what to expect. Yeah, you're setting yourself up for success there, right?
Yeah. Once again, you've crystallized my thoughts precisely, Nigel.
I'm just trying to keep up with you. I'm trying to keep up with your massive intellect and brain. All these things that are going on.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, and you're going through that process as a super experienced, pro player, years of touring and all that sort of stuff. And even so, you're still going through that same process that somebody who might be going for their very first jam session
Absolutely.
will be going through. And I think that's a really important point for anybody listening that may be thinking, well, I'm 57 years old. I'm just starting to go to my first jam session. I've never done this before. Well, it's the same if you've spent 30 years touring around the world already. You still have to go out and meet people. You still need to know what the ground rules are, the rules of engagement, and you need to know what the sort of tunes are, the standard tunes there. So, Joel, another thing that I see people getting wrong is they get so excited about doing all that homework that Fred's just been talking about, but then they get up to being on stage and they realize they don't sort of understand how to communicate with the other musicians. So could you tell us a little bit about that sort of process? Because I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, sure. Just going back to one of the things that Fred said actually about not taking your instrument the first few times that you go. I always found that really interesting because you'll go to some jams and you'll watch the jam and you'll enjoy it and you'll go home, and you go to some and you just absolutely crave that you'd brought your sax with you.
Absolutely.
You get this feeling, it's like, I wish I brought my sax, and that's a really good way of knowing if there is a selection of jams that you're going to, that's probably the one for you. You'll get this feeling about it. And then you go off and do all the things that Fred said, learn the tunes and see what's going on there and what the vibe is and stuff. But yeah, when you get there, obviously you can't expect the band, even if you take sheet music, you can't expect the band to know what you're thinking or what your take is on a tune. So there's certain things that are just really important, particularly in a jam situation. Basic things like, what key are you doing it in? Particularly if you've not got charts. If you've got charts, that's kind of obvious. But if not, just checking that they're going to do it in the key. This kind of thing goes on all the time. And once again, it can be regional. On Green Dolphin Street is a great example of this. I spent years playing it in the key of C concert, and when I went to Europe, everyone played it in E flat. So you get up and you go that, and they'd start, and you think, hang on, because maybe you hadn't checked that. So always just checking basic things: what key, what style. And being really clear about the style. If you want it to be Latin or bossa nova, or you want it to be straight ahead, just tell them what you want. They'll be quite happy. Rhythm sections particularly, they want instruction. They want clarity on what they're going to do. So those basic things: what key, what kind of tempo are you going to do it, and what style are you going to do it in? It's a very quick sentence, a very easy thing to do, but really easy to forget as well. So that's important to do. And then this is where things, I think, can go hideously wrong if you're not careful. And it's really easy to forget about. It's intros and outros. How's it going to start and how is it going to end? So just knowing some typical ways of doing intros and outros. For example, just saying, right, can you play the last 4 bars of the tune as an intro? Fine. Everyone knows what's going on at the beginning. We're going to come straight in at the beginning. I'm going to count you straight into the tune. Or we're going to do a little vamp into the tune. Depends on the style of the tune. There are 3 kind of very common ones that might come up. Just doing the last 4 or 8 bars, doing a little vamp, or you're straight in. So at least everybody knows what's happening at the beginning, because you don't want it to fall into chaos literally within the first 2 bars of playing at your new jam night. So that's the first thing. And then I think almost more importantly, and really easy to forget about, how is it going to end? Because at the end of the
never ends, Joel.
Well, this is the thing, because it doesn't matter. It could go absolutely amazing. You might play the best you've ever played in your life, but if the whole thing collapses into turmoil at the end, everybody there will only ever remember that. You only remember the last thing that you heard. So the ending's really important, and actually, once the tune's going and everyone's playing and they're all doing the stuff, it's almost impossible to arrange how that's going to end at that point. You've got to remember to do it beforehand. So it could be just as simple as it's a dead stop on the end on this note, and you give them a beat. On beat 1 of the last bar of the tune, or whatever it is, that's how we're going to finish it. Or we're going to repeat the last 4 bars, or we're going to go into... So very similar to the intro in a lot of ways, but just give them some clarity about what you want to do. So I've got all these kind of beginnings and endings, just standard things that I'm not going to have to over-explain that you hear on tunes all the time. So I can clearly say, right, we're going to do it in this key, in this style, intro's going to be 4 bars of you doing that, and at the end we're going to go into a vamp on the last chord for a little bit, and I'll cue it out. So it's a quick sentence, but it gives clarity to the entire thing, and it'll go a lot more smoothly. Then they'll respect you because it sounds like you know what you're doing, even if you don't. And so I think they're really important things to remember. And then when it comes to you actually playing as well, don't hog it. You see some people get up and they'll do, they think they're kind of Coltrane and do a 40-minute solo over D minor. It's a jam night. The point is there's other people waiting to get up and other people that are nervous and wanting their first go, or that are regulars that want to get up. So, don't, just be, think about the situation and, play your part. Remember, it's a team effort, and there's no I in team and all that. So just be mindful of the situation, and just don't go mad. Basically.
Yeah, that's a really important point. That I think less is more, definitely. And the idea of a jam session is it's not going to be your one golden moment that's going to last in history forever. It's about developing skills, and it's hopefully something you'll do over and over. So yeah, get in there, do your thing, do a great job, and get out and think about how you can build on that next time you go play. Well, the other thing I was thinking about, it's so important what you're saying about the intro and the outro, and it's good to have a clear idea in your mind. If you're less experienced at this, right, if you've never really gone and played in a band before, then I guess it is quite difficult to have the confidence to be able to direct the band on what is going to happen. Because as you get more experienced at performing, you realize that as a saxophone player particularly, you can show the band where you start, where you're going to end. They should be watching you. But that's something that comes with confidence and experience. But having a clear idea in your mind is the very first important step on that process. So all that stuff you're talking about, Joel, is so important.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're not sure as well, you can always ask the band. How would you like to start it? How do you normally finish that? And they can make the decision for you. So if you're not clear, at least you've had the conversation. I mean, that's the more important thing. It's not that you have to decide it or they have to decide it. It's that somebody decides what's going on. You can be collaborative with it as well and ask their advice. How do you normally play this tune? What key do you normally play this tune in? So if you're really unsure, then you can take their advice, and that's another route. But it's better to come in, I think, as a sax player and kind of at least have an idea. Even if it's really basic, we're just going to kick straight in with the tune, and at the end we're going to end on the last note. At least everyone knows what they're doing. So it doesn't have to be some mega arrangement or anything.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. Hey, just a quick note, if you are enjoying the episode and you want to go deeper with your saxophone journey and you haven't already checked out Sax School, I was thinking, why haven't you checked out Sax School? Because did you know you can get a free 14-day access to the entire Sax School learning system, the library, the tutor support, everything. It's all available over at saxschoolonline.com. So if you do want to develop your skills, go and check it out. Not right now. No, wait till the episode's finished and then go to saxschoolonline.com. Click the button there. Start your free 14-day trial. It's your way to explore all of the thousands of lessons, our complete learning curriculum. Try as many as you want. You can also reach out to the tutors like Fred and Joel, myself, and all the other guys we've got teaching there. Guys and ladies, and get your questions answered, maybe come to a live stream session, or maybe even go and get involved with what's going on in the community. We'd love to help you, and that's all over at saxschoolonline.com. So we've talked about going and doing your research and being prepared. We've talked about the communication on stage. I think the third thing that's really important is just getting your mindset right about how you can deal with the inevitable nerves that are going to happen when you get up on stage and you actually need to start playing for people. So for some people, you may be thinking, well, why would I possibly be nervous doing that? It's going to be easy. But for 99.9% of other people, you're probably thinking, that's a terrifying, confronting situation to be up on stage in front of a load of people, on stage with a bunch of musicians I don't really know that possibly be more experienced than I am. And then I've got to play my saxophone as well. So it's going to be a confronting situation. But there are a few things that you can do that can help you to prepare for it. The first thing I think, is we talked about our students about this a lot actually, is performance practice. So Fred mentioned earlier about finding out some tunes that are appropriate for that jam session and going and learning those tunes. And I think part of that process should be putting yourself in a situation in your practice space before you even go to the jam session where you do performance practice. And that means setting up your performance space as if you were actually on stage. Now, that might mean for you, you know what, you're going to face the window and you're going to have the backing track playing through a loudspeaker behind you, and you've got your music stand a little bit lower so you can make eye contact with the audience, and you're actually going to play the piece of music from beginning to end. Or maybe if there's 3 songs, you're going to cue them up and you're going to play them one after the other. And you're going to think about your intros and your outros, and you're going to put a little bit of pressure on yourself. You might even want to video record it, right? So doing that sort of practice really helps us to get used to what we're going to feel like in our body when we're under a little bit of pressure. And that'll help us to be more prepared when we actually get up on stage. The other thing I think is important is when you do get up on stage, just being aware of the fact that, well, A, you are going to be possibly a little bit nervous, and B, that's kind of normal. So you've got to kind of expect it, right? And you can help yourself to deal with that by remembering to be breathing deeply, to have your shoulders back, to look confident and be relaxed. And remember that the first time you get up on stage hopefully isn't going to be your last time, and it doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to get up there and do it and enjoy the process. And just one extra bonus tip, by the way, if you are finding yourself having to do some improvising in that situation, don't fall into the trap that most people do, which is you're a little bit tense, you're a bit excited, the adrenaline's pumping, and then you're just going to try and play every idea you've ever thought about and make it super complicated. You're far better off, like Joel mentioned, keeping your solo short, but also keeping your solo simple, focusing on clear ideas and great rhythm, because that's actually easier to do, and the audience are going to understand it better, and you're going to have a much better experience out of the whole thing. So keep it simple. Remember that hopefully you're going to do this a lot more times, and every time you do it, it's going to get better. And just be prepared for being a little bit stressed and nervous, and just enjoy the process. Does that kind of cover it, guys? Have you got any other tips?
I have one more. I have one more tale that I'd like to tell. Joel reminded me of, and that is, and this may seem obvious, but when you talk about keys, remember that your instrument is in a different key than the concert instruments. And I have a little story about this. When I was a budding musician, and a drummer friend of mine, a pretty good drummer, had organized a little concert, and he had hired some of the best musicians in the area, like really, really guys that would never be hiring me at my age to play, and like jazz guys, the guitar player from the Heath Brothers, and like all these really, really good musicians. And he brought me on stage to play a ballad, and they said, "What do you want to play?" I said, "Okay, let's play Body and Soul." And they said, "What key?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't. Let's see. The first note is F. It's in F." So they started the song in F, and guess what? That is not the key of Body and Soul. And then I heard them shout to each other, D flat, D flat. So they had started the song in the key that I told them to play it in. And it was a little bit of what we'd call a fire in a pet shop kind of thing for a minute there.
Oh, yes.
So know your keys in concert as well.
Yes, know your keys in concert, definitely.
Know your keys in concert, yeah. That's one of those experiences that sort of stays with you for a really long time.
Yes, I still have nightmares.
Cold sweats. Oh, fun. Oh, brilliant. Well, hey, look, if you're listening to this and you are thinking, I really want to get out on stage, I'm hoping that this has helped you. Just a quick recap. So, Fred, you were saying...
I was saying, be prepared. Just go, do your homework. Check out the scene and figure out what you want to do and know what you want to do and be confident. The more confident you are, the less the nerves will get to you.
Love it. And Joel?
Yeah, once again, be prepared in a different way. Just know about how you want to perform the pieces, intros, endings, tempos, styles, all that kind of stuff. Just clearly communicate with your band what you're going to do, and don't overplay or hog the limelight.
Absolutely. And don't forget that you probably will be nervous. So prepare for this by doing some performing practice, and then think about how you can present yourself in a confident outward, at least look confident when you're on stage, breathe deeply, make eye contact, keep it simple and enjoy the experience. And remember, every time you get out there on stage, it's going to get better and better. And us that have done thousands of gigs, I think we still approach it the same way when we go on stage. Like, yeah, it's hopefully be a bit better than last time, and maybe next time I play will be even better, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it's all about as well. If it all goes a bit pear-shaped, it's a good story for the future. It doesn't matter. No one's going to die because you play a wrong note.
Case in point.
It's not that serious. It is supposed to be fun at the end of the day, and I think that's really important to remember. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun, and a wrong note is funny. It's fine. It's all right. It's just music and collaborative and a bit of fun. So don't take it too seriously either, I think is worth saying.
Love it. I love it. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I hope you found this useful. If you know somebody else that might find this useful too, I'd love it if you shared it with them. And don't forget, you can check out all of the episodes over at saxschoolonline.com/podcast. Keep practicing hard. We'll catch you next time.